Hello, everyone, and welcome to tonight's Get in Tune. My name is Michael Gracia, and I have a great show planned for you tonight. Um, but before I bring on my guest, I just want to make one quick announcement because we are in December. And As we all know, the show is on Wednesday nights, and in what, 3 weeks is it? Wednesday is Christmas Eve, so I won't have a show that night. There's actually only going to be three shows, including tonight's show on, and I'll have next Wednesday and the following Wednesday. Um, so anyway, let's get to my guest because he's a great guy. I love chatting with him, and we're going to have a really fun time tonight. We got some people in the comments already. Just want to say hi to Dylan. So on tonight, he is a writer. I don't want to call him a crafter. He's built tons of things, and I'm going to let him talk about it. He's most known for the puppets that his company built for Celebrity Deathmatch, and which was a fantastic show I watched in my youth there. But he has a comic out. We're going to talk about that. He's got a couple of comic projects. We're going to talk about that and lots of other things. He's also a huge Spider-Man fan, and you'll see that in a moment as well. So let's bring on, his name is Carl Paolino. And here's Carl.
Hi, how are you?
Hey, doing good. How you doing?
Great, thank you for having me on. This is a fun thing to do on a Wednesday night.
Yes. I mean, I'm glad you can come on. I've been meaning to ask you for such a long time. I've known you now for about a year, and I've never had the chance to, to get you on. So, so I know I gave you kind of I won't call it a half-ass intro. There's so much to you that I don't want to get wrong, you know. And
That's okay.
you've done so much, and I'm excited to hear about a lot because I know um, I don't know everything. And one of the things that like pushed me to ask you to come on was when we both did Yonkers Comic Con and we were on the panel, and you talked about working in your youth and how you built up to you know getting into your industry. And at some point we want to talk about that. But for those who don't know who you are, can you please give us a little background on you and what you do and what you've done?
Sure. Well, let's see. Let's go back to some of the beginning. Um, Back when I wanted to go to art school, art college, and back in the day, you didn't have many options.
Mhm.
There was School of Visual Arts in Manhattan. I believe the Joe Kubert School was just getting started. They were, I don't want to make it sound like it's that far away in New Jersey, but back in the day, it could have been in Omaha, Nebraska. It was just way too far away to get to. And I was always interested in comic book illustration.
Mhm.
Primarily, that's what I wanted to do. But going to an art college in Manhattan, which was a big trip for little boy who grew up in Queens, hopping a bus and then two trains and then
Yeah.
walking through the big bad city back in the day when it was a little scary. Um, my choices were fine arts, photography. What did they have? They might have had media arts, film production, and I think that was like it.
Wow.
Film production had a couple of animation classes, and I thought, oh, I love animation. That's like comic book illustration. Let's uh, let's go into film production, and I did fall in love with film production, and that's what got me into the entertainment industry. Um, so, first funny story, I guess, would be I was in my second year in film school, and I started looking up we used to have books in those days we used to buy, and they would have listings of all the different companies, film production companies, animation companies. And I would bring with me a pocket full of dimes, and I would go to a payphone and I'd start calling them up and saying, hey, you need a production assistant, whatever. And lo and behold, it was about 1979 when one guy said, what are you doing right now? And I thought, well, I'm not doing anything. And he said, you said you know how to do stop motion animation. And I said, yeah, I had the rudimentary idea. You move something, you take a frame, you move it, you take a frame. And I said, what's your address? And his address was across the street from the school. And I was
Oh,
like, that's crazy. So I said, well, when do you need me? He says, can you come now? So I went back into my class. I sneaked in. I picked up my coat, got my book. So all you came with is a notebook in those days. You didn't have an iPad or anything. And I snuck out. I went over there and they were shooting the stop motion, I want to say sequence, but it was only one single shot uh, of a stop motion piece for the movie Simon, which was going to be a big features directed and written by Marshall Brickman, who worked with Woody Allen on a lot of features. And there was this one shot in stop motion. And that's it. I walked in, man, that's it. I'm dead. This is what I'm doing for the rest of my life. And we animated these little puppets that were shaped like sperm, but they had faces on them. And when you get close enough, you realize the face was Alan Arkin because he was the lead in the film. And I was just like, what is this? And he explained to me, you bend the tail like they're swimming back and forth like this. And then we advanced them. They were hanging from thin wires, and we advanced them a little bit and we moved their tail and we shot a sequence. And I was like, this is crazy. This is all happening right here, Midtown Manhattan. In those days, we heard about all the stop motion animation that was happening in California. I didn't know this was happening across the street from my school. So we became friends, myself and the person who ran the production. And we did another stop motion sequence, and it was all freelance in those days. So I never worked with him again, but I ended up working for several of his friends, in the industry. And that was my very first taste of a professional piece of animation. It was all shot on 35 millimeter. So the cameras were like bigger than my head. And, then the big, heavy, looked like Mickey Mouse ears that were full of 35 millimeter animation film. It was a big deal. We had to wait 24 hours to see the finished product, and it was played up on an upright projector. It was called a moviola, which we soon learned was called a film eater, because like you could just never thread it right, and it just chewed up the film. But in those days, you shot on negative, and then you struck a print, and the print was what we actually viewed, and then the negative went to the editor cut it. The long, horrible process. And thank God we don't do that anymore.
yeah.
So that's where it all began. I forgot your question already.
No. Listen, that was first of all good. I was asking, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you've done, and that I mean, I'd like to hear some credits just so the audience can know. But I think that is an amazing entry into the industry. I mean, literally right across from your school, and you're learning how to do professional work.
Within within just a couple of years. So after like my third year, I decided to quit college, which upset my parents beyond human belief. But I wanted to start exploring the industry. I mean, I already had some credits. So I ended up working with another guy. I'll say his name is Bob Franz. And the reason I mention his name is because I truly admired everything he did. He wasn't afraid to do anything. He was building his own motion control camera. Now, you got to remember at this time in the late 70s, who had motion control cameras? ILM and John Dykstra. And that was like it. I mean, everybody was like trying to figure out this new technology. So when I went to his studio, we were shooting, do you remember US Air? I don't think it's a brand anymore. It used to be a big airline, US Air. It was probably absorbed by someone else. And he had this large airplane. It was about 4 or 5 feet long, and we hung it from the ceiling. And he was shooting something called rear screen projection, which you hear about in the old films. You don't hear about it anymore. And frame by frame, we were projecting animation onto the screen, had the airplane in front of it, and the camera would be here shooting the plane as if it was flying, and the background was moving. And the ad agency didn't like it. So then he decided to shoot front screen projection. So now we had one of these screens that had, do you remember the old movie screens when you projected them in your living room? I don't know if you're that old.
Listen, I still have in the corner,
Yeah,
I have
right.
an 8-footer.
And they have that glassy surface, very rough, sort of a sandpaper texture, because it
Yeah.
actually is ground glass. And the purpose of this was when you project it, the light bounces directly back at the audience. So if you lined up your projector with your camera, you got what looks like the first Superman movie with Christopher Reeve.
Mhm.
And he's flying around. He got a beautiful, colorful background behind him. That was about 1978. That's what we were doing in this tiny studio on 45th Street between 5th and 6th Avenue. So I got to learn how to utilize all this equipment very, very early on, which was, I think, helpful. I tried to get a lot of work, like doing television commercials and things like this. And I always had this strange feeling that going into the studio, when I showed my portfolio, I got a feeling that a lot of the people who were running the commercials were a little afraid of me because I kind of like knew about everything they were doing. And sometimes I got work, sometimes I didn't.
Yeah. Let me just say hi to the Joker, 124. Hey, Joker. And Rich Maruzio is in the audience. So, friend
Oh,
of
I thought it
ours.
was Maurizio, but I could be wrong. One of us
Um,
is saying it right, and one of us is saying it wrong. Hey,
uh,
Richard, what's going on?
yeah. So, no, that's an interesting. Yeah, interesting. First of all, I don't remember those times in the industry.
That's okay.
You're talking about a time I was like 3 years old at the time you were doing that stuff. But I think that stuff's fascinating because when I went, oh, Carl is right. I'm sorry, I've been pronouncing your last name wrong forever. Then uh, I've known him since the '90s. Uh, you should tell me. Um, but yeah, no, but I studied all that stuff when I wanted to learn how to get into the industry and was learning animation. I was more of a 2D, hand drawing guy, but I studied stop motion and not for me. Uh, but I got to work with puppets in a different way. So that I love. But I
What
have built what?
I'm
Go ahead.
sorry.
No, what were you going to say?
What I learned about stop motion was if you want to be a good stop motion animator, one of the things that would really help is if you had a puppet that moved properly. In
Mhm.
other words, it had to be made right. And if
Yeah.
it wasn't made right, it's just so frustrating. It's falling over, it's bending where it shouldn't, your fingerprints are left on it, it's breaking apart, and it's always this big mess. So it became my new concentration to learn how to make things properly so that they perform properly. And then so it basically is, you can't do everything. I ended up not focusing on the actual animation, and I
Mhm.
ended up focusing on the construction.
Production.
So we used to call that fabrication, which
Mhm.
was good because I used a lot of these techniques when I began to learn how to do makeup special effects, create prosthetics, doing specialty costumes, creatures, monsters, large lizards. I've done all sorts of weird stuff, and I learned how to sculpt things um, in scale, make proper molds, cast them so that they could operate properly, and that is what led me to Celebrity Deathmatch, actually.
Wow. And we're gonna get to that. But I actually am fascinated by the fabrication process. When I worked in puppetry, I worked more in construction than performance. Um, so I worked a lot with wood. but I also worked with clay and sculpting, body parts to mold. I don't know. I was just curious about the process you went through, or that you would go through, whether it was for Celebrity Deathmatch or before Celebrity Deathmatch, to make these puppets, because I'm really fascinated by the building.
All right, some more film history for you here.
Yeah, yeah.
Excuse me. It's so dry in here. My throat is so dry. Okay, so I'm thinking by the time you got to art school, it became more sophisticated than what I got.
Mhm.
Um, there was literally no place to learn any of these things, and that included school. Nobody knew what I wanted to do. I ran into a couple of students who were also interested in what I was interested in, and they found answers to their questions in crazy places, just as I did too. And we would kind of like push these ideas together and learn a little. I'll teach you what I know. You teach me what you know. But for the most part, the other thing that I found in that first, let's call it that first decade of my career, was that once you got into the professional part of the industry, you started doing production assistant work at studios that shot TV commercials, or you were looking to freelance to make things for them, is that nobody wanted to share. It was one of the strangest things that I experienced. Maybe it's just the first of what things were really going on, but I never had any problem explaining to somebody something if I knew how to do it and they didn't. And I never had a problem with sharing ever, and I still don't. So, to answer your question directly, I made shit up. There was just no place to learn these things.
Yeah.
There used to be a store, I'm gonna say, let's see, 14th, 13th. I think it was 12th Street between 5th and 6th. It was called something like, it was a bookstore that also had back issues of everything, nostalgia something. And I used to go in there and I go in there with a list of things that I found somewhere in other books and say, "Do you have this magazine? Do you have that magazine?" And I would pay whatever they wanted so I could read this 2-page article on something that Ray Harryhausen did in Seventh Voyage of Sinbad. And to me, it was just mind blowing to find out this information. So I used to haunt uh, art stores and just look at all the products, which is now, I would say, probably 5% of what you could find in an art store today. There were only so many types of this, that, or the other thing. And I remember when I discovered liquid latex for the first time, that was mind blowing because I read about it in a book called, oh wow, it had King Kong on the cover. It was a hardcover. And, upon reflection, it was the first time I read about how the original King Kong puppet was made back in 1933. And the author had no idea what he was writing. He was listening to people explain things to him that either knew something about it or actually did it, but it was so alien to the writer, he would misinterpret it when he wrote it. He would say things like, "It was molded in rubber." What exactly does that mean? So at some point, I learned about something called liquid latex. Now, if you were into pottery, you knew what liquid latex was, and it was available. Probably one version of it. Now there's like 80 different versions of liquid latex, different thicknesses, different colors. Some dry quickly, some dry slowly, some shrink, some don't. But back then, it was like probably just a couple. And I had read about something called liquid latex, and you could paint it into a mold, and you could build up coats, and you can make it thick, and you can make a rubber mask to pull over your head. And I was just like, I must have this. So I pulled out, for any of you younger viewers right now, we had this book. It was about that thick. It was called The Yellow Pages. And I started looking up art stores and I started phoning them. A phone is this thing that's on the wall and you got to like take the receiver off and then you got to dial it one number at a time. It was insane. And I found a place in Manhattan that sold it. And I was like, oh my God, what time do you close? And they said they close in an hour. I got in my car. I drove into the city. I parked on the street and I ran to the store. I was completely out of breath. I'm like, I came here to buy liquid latex. And they must have thought I was out of my mind. But to me, this was just the beginning of, I used liquid latex for decades after that. I try not to use it anymore because I teach in School of Visual Arts. And in college, I found that a lot of students are highly allergic to latex these days. I don't know if it was like that back then, but it is today. So I've gravitated away from latex and I use a lot of silicone products. Anyway, I went into the store and he was about to close and he had this plastic jar up on the, and I was like, oh my God. And I'm counting my pennies out of my pocket to buy, because that's where all my money went. It went into art supplies. And just as I'm ready to leave, another guy comes in. He looked like, I'm going to guess, Craig was just a couple of years older than me. Although, you know, when I was like 19, he was probably 24 and he looked like an adult. And I still look like a kid because I had this little mustache that had just grown in. Anyway, he was like, I have to have liquid latex. And I thought, this is really weird. Wanting it. And it's like suddenly a run on latex. See, he bought it. We started talking. And I still see him today. He's on my Facebook page. Craig is an amazing puppeteer. He had a company back then. He closed one of his, I think his first big deal. It was for a TV show called Pinwheel. And it was all marionettes. No, it was all hand puppets like Jim Henson stuff. And I was just like floored. And he goes, would you like to come to the studio and watch us shoot? Are you kidding me? And the next day I was at the studio watching him perform. It was absolutely astounding. What a super sweet guy. And we stayed friends over decades. This has been quite a while ago. But I was never afraid to pull information from anywhere. And if anybody invited me, I was there. I never asked to get paid. I never say, well, you know, I got other things to do. I was always all in on my career, every step.
Yeah. And that's the way you have to be. You know, if you want to learn everything you can. I mean, that's basically what I did. You know, I learned, I was telling you, I learned animation. Well, this is the story. When I was a little kid, I wanted to be an animator. I learned about flip books. I made my own, but didn't understand them. When I was in 7th grade, I got the book Chuck Amuck, you know, the Chuck Jones story.
Yeah.
And it was I think it's his biography. It's been a while since I read it. I have it up there. But when you look at it, it was actually a flip book at the top and down the side. So it was the Roadrunner and the coyote chasing and watching the coyote fall. And I'm like, oh my God. So I just started copying. They were very tiny pictures. And I just started copying and understanding the movement in between. And I kind of taught myself until I was like 14 or 15 when I got my first like real animation book and read that like cover to cover and was starting to understand how animation worked. And I just started teaching myself. And then when I was in school, the first animation class I took was a computer animation class.
Wow.
And it was different. I learned a program called Director, which no longer exists. But from there, what happened was a guy, and this is how I started in the industry at 18. A guy came to the school looking for people. He got the flyer for the school in his mail, or you know, the last resident or whatever, and he saw they were teaching all the programs he needed at his new company. And he was making children's educational software, and he came and he saw my portfolio. He saw what I did. And because Director was an interactive program where you can like set up like click this and the character can move across the screen, and you have to animate the character actually. So because I was able to animate, I had a good drawing ability and I understood the software he was using. Guy hired me. And from there, I moved on to other things. And then later on, I was working for a company where I was doing Flash animation. This is late 90s, like early 2000s. And they had a couple of old timers that were animating by hand. and then I would take them and scan the work in. But I became friendly with those guys, and they showed me stuff, so I learned how to animate better. And so I was doing more character stuff, and eventually I started animating a couple of characters as well, and and that's kind of how I learned. But it was all because of me taking advantage of what I had access to, or just finding whatever I could. I got a light box when I was a kid. I'm like, I need something. Before that, I was drawing off a window, so I just made sure that I always had what I needed,
Yeah,
and
that's funny. I still do that sometimes. If I like, I get an idea, I want to sketch something. I'll take some scotch tape and I'll take a piece of paper and I'll tape it to the window. And I'm like, like real old school. But you know what? It's just it works.
yeah,
No matter, it's about your ability. It's not about having all the best tools and toys and toys.
yeah.
I like
No,
toys.
who doesn't? I mean, I see your collection behind you there, and you can see mine here, and well, it's being blocked,
You
but
got to surround yourself with. You got to be like. So this way, all the energy stays in one ball and
yeah.
doesn't go anywhere. And you
Yeah, I
know,
have like one drawing of mine hanging up in here. The rest is other people's artwork all around the studio here. I can't really look at my own work.
oh,
That's just how it is. Once it's done, and I don't want to see it anymore.
the picture behind you looks like a Frank Frazetta, but it looks like it's done
Uh,
in an manga style or something. I can't. It's the
which
green,
one? The one
the
next
big.
to the Simpsons, or
No, the big green thing
this
picture.
one? Oh, I'm sorry, you can't see my mouse. I'm colorblind, so hold on. Let me.
It's
I'm
the
gonna give.
giant picture behind you. The lamp is in front of it.
Oh, this right here.
You see it right
The
here, but I don't see
yeah,
you
the
pointing.
lamp right here. That's a Legend of Zelda. It's all the different versions of Link.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I'm a big Legend of Zelda fan. That especially the original stuff. Like for the original Nintendo. That was my era of games. But I never and the thing was I'm not a big gamer. Never have been. But when I started working for that company in '94, that gave me my first job. It was about making educational software for kids. Um, and I ended up liking the process so much from the behind the scenes that I stopped playing games in 1994.
Wow.
Like I don't play video games. Once in a while, like my wife likes games. When we were dating, maybe I'd play a video game with her or something, but I just never. I kind of just stopped. I got out of the whole playing, but I love following. Like I have the Art of Blizzard in my other room there. I have like Art of Gaming books and things, because I just love concept art for gaming so much. But I just have no interest in playing them.
I can never really get into the gaming, honestly. Like my sons did, because that was like they literally grew into it.
Yeah.
The first Nintendo game with Super Mario, and I can't do this. I don't get. You know what I liked? I always like Tetris
Oh yeah, that's always a
because I
fun.
could build things.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
No,
like building things and putting them together.
yeah. I'll still play that if I can. But yeah, it's something like puzzle games and things like that I'm okay with. When I was a little kid, like in the 80s and early 90s, well, mostly 80s, I played computer games. And I was a big fan of like the Sierra. I don't know if you know Sierra.
No.
They did like King's Quest, Space Quest, Police
Oh,
Quest, Quest of Glory, a lot of quests. Uh, they were the Leisure Suit Larry people, if you know that one. So it was a big thing for me back then, all those games. But I was a big King's Quest fan, and I'm like, I blame them for getting me into the world of fantasy and loving fantasy and all that so much, because I would play that game for hours, and they don't have anything like that anymore. To me, that I consider fun. So, but anyway, I guess we're both not gamers. But yeah, it's a very very interesting all the stuff you've done, but I want to talk a little bit about Celebrity Deathmatch, because that is a big thing. Like that when I see you at shows, that you have Celebrity Deathmatch, stuff, the some of the actually video games, tapes, you make some of the magnets and all that. So it's all kind of like cool stuff. And when I see your table, it brings back memories. I remember watching that,
Yeah.
and being amazed, because even though I know stop motion isn't for me to do, I love looking at it. It's one of those things where I just love looking at stuff I can't do, and just am fascinated by it.
I
And
think that's a general nature of art. I mean, why do we go to museums to look at art?
yeah.
We go to look at stuff that, we can't do. And that's why I kind of stay away from like modern art. It's like a little dig there. But generally, the thing about Celebrity Deathmatch, just to be clear, because periodically I get somebody, in fact, every show I go to, somebody wants to do a podcast, and I can't do them all.
Yeah.
It's too much, and sometimes people misinterpret what I'm there for, why I was asked there as a guest, and they're like, Carl, the creator of, and I'm like, no, 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 don't ever make that mistake. I would never take that credit away from the writer director who created Celebrity Deathmatch. In fact, everybody says, well, what was it like working with? And I said, I never worked with the director. I work with the producer. That's the person who hired me. That's the person who approved my work. That's the person who gave me my check after, for 2 years or so that I worked on the show. And it was all about, we want to make this claymation show, and we're having trouble either making the puppets or making them work, animating. There was mechanical problems, which just so happened to be my expertise. So they sent over the two main characters, the Nick and Johnny character, and they made these clay puppets. And I remember they were like in a shoebox or something, and they were on this bed of tinfoil, because clay sticks to everything. And like they put them on my desk, and it was like, boom. And I'm like, what's in these things? And they said, oh, they're solid clay. So I stood it up. It was like really big. And it was just like, I think I know why you can't animate it. It's too heavy, and it's made of clay. And they were all like, well, that's what claymation is. I said, that's a gray area. The puppets I would make for you have to be made out of foam rubber latex. And we could paint them and make them look like clay. And they like, oh, that was a good idea. So we made a couple of puppets. They thought it was fine. I still get people coming to my table who are in their, I'm going to say they're in their 30s and 40s and 50s. And they're like, oh, I thought it was all clay. Because like you crushed their head. And I said, yeah, we would make a hard plastic head, and then we would make a duplicate in clay that you could, and sadly we didn't do that with the whole puppet. So if an animator chopped off an arm or something, they actually destroyed the puppets. Those puppets were mangled and destroyed by the animators, just totally destroyed. So one of the things I did was I created the production line, which means the puppets were going to be scaled down to about an average of 10 inches in height. The heads were made of a hard plastic, what we call a two-part cold casting. It's like a urethane.
Yeah.
They call it resin. I'm not even sure which it is, but it's a two-part cold casting plastic. And we cast them in silicone molds. The bodies were originally sculpted in clay, and then we made plaster molds out of a very hard casting material called Ultra Cal 30. And then we would make wire armatures out of aluminum wire. I believe they call that almaloy wire. And we would put nuts in the feet. So from underneath the stage, there would be a hole, and a bolt would go up into the nut and secure the foot to the stage, so the next foot could be lifted and the puppet would not fall over. And that was really one of the basically that created the whole thing, because they came
Yeah.
to me and said, it was like the MTV days, and it's kind of a hard thing for anyone to imagine because MTV's gone now; they don't
Yeah.
exist. But to them, it was how quickly and how cheaply can you make puppets? So what kind of question is that? So I gave them a price, and they were like, "Well, that's too much money." But you know what? If this gets greenlit, it turns into a series. You got the work. I wish I had $1 every time a producer told me that. you know, I might have $100. So, um, sure, we renegotiated, and I just thought it's not going to fly. Probably because I wanted it to, like I really wanted to do this, but I'm like, yeah, it's too much to wish for. So we made a bunch of puppets. The animators were able to move them around successfully, and we painted the foam latex with acrylic paint. Sometimes we mixed the paint with liquid latex, and everything had sort of a shiny, semi shiny, uh, doughy kind of look to it. So calling it claymation was not a problem. Everybody bought into it.
Yeah.
And when things got crushed, you could see it really was clay pieces because we made duplicate pieces. So the illusion was sold. They pulled it off beyond the shadow of a doubt. But I was only in like 1/3, the first third of the whole chain. We used
Yeah.
to overlap shows. We used to work on like 4 episodes at a time, and then take like a month or so off, and then work on the next 4 episodes. So basically, what was happening after we did 20 to 30 puppets for the first show, it would go to the next stage, would be the animating. And then the third stage would be post production. The editing added the sound effects, blood, probably drawn blood. Originally, it was clay. They were using clay, but it was too messy. And then they started hiring people like you to go in there and draw, blood shooting all over the place. And that's where that went. So we would do like between 20 and 30 puppets for each episode. And every other, like, once a month, maybe twice a month, we would do that. And then the other 2 weeks out of the month, we'd have nothing to do. Well, like I had a thriving studio at the time. We were working on TV shows. I did work for Broadway shows. I've done work for live events. Music videos were really big back then. So,
Mhm.
and that's when, I guess that was before you could find music online and get it for free. So, record companies were putting two, three, $400,000 into a music video
Yeah.
where they're paying a top star to just mouth it, because it's all pre-recorded,
Yeah.
just get in there and sell it. But it was great for us because we either did a prosthetic or a prop or a miniature or a costume or something. We worked on a whole bunch of music videos. Trying to name one of them would be tough right now. Periodically I get somebody coming to the table and it's like, hey, who was fighting so and so and I'm like, what, in celebrity? I don't remember. I made over, my studio made over 400 puppets. I don't remember, honestly. I'd have to go back and go, oh yeah, I don't remember.
Yeah.
Like I remember making specific puppets. I made a puppet. We did the it was Jack Nicholson versus Leo DiCaprio. So
Okay.
25 years ago, it was the beginning of Leo's career. He was already a big star, but it was still the early part of his career. I guess
Yeah.
that was before he started doing any of the Scorsese pictures. So um, a friend of mine was doing some business with him, and he called me up and said, would you like to meet Leo? I said, sure, that sounds like a lot of fun. He goes, well, he'll be at my studio tomorrow. Can you come over? And I said, sure, that would be great. He goes, one little thing. I kind of promised him you were going to bring something. Like what? He said, can you make the puppet that you did for Celebrity Deathmatch? And I said, that's a lot of work. He goes, can you at least make the head? I said, sure. So I had one of my sculptors And I said, can you sculpt this in like the next hour or two so we could make a mold and then cast it and paint it, and I'll have it with me the next morning? And you know, at that time I had like 10 people working for me. So we did it. Next morning I showed up with a little Leo DiCaprio head on a peg. You know? And I it's really funny. It was like the middle of the day. He came wandering in and you wouldn't have recognized him. So he was wearing a baseball cap and his hair was tied back and dark glasses. And in New York City, you really don't recognize too many famous people. And New Yorkers kind of know, you know, don't mess with the guy, you know.
Yeah.
In LA, they'll chase you and try to cut your hair. And, you know, and that's what they do in LA. In New York, it's a different vibe. So he came in, he was very quiet. He was doing some business with my friend. And then he gave me the cue. My friend said, like, give it to him, give it to him. So I pulled out the Leo DiCaprio head and I put it on the table. And he suddenly turned into a big kid. He was like, oh, this is beautiful. I remember this. Celebrity Deathmatch, Jack Nicholson killed me. He was just totally into it. It felt so good, you know, to meet a star that didn't take himself so seriously that would insult him. Instead, he was like, oh, I'm going to give this to my mom. She loves all the stuff that you find in the newspapers and clippings. And I was like, man, that felt really good. You know? So,
Nice.
but that was the only actor I ever met that we created in the studio for Celebrity Deathmatch.
Wow. No, that's a nice story. I like
thank
that.
you.
No, I like that.
I saved up all my good stories for tonight.
Thank you. I appreciate it. But you know, you're doing other stuff now.
Yes.
You are
nice segue. Very smooth.
Yes. And you are now doing comics.
Yes.
And I you know, I have to ask before we get into talking about your comics. It is obvious you are a Spider-Man fan. And
Oh, really?
I know you have a great John Romita Sr. story. And I'd love for you to tell because to me, it is one of my favorite stories I've heard you tell.
Oh, wow. Okay. Then I got to really tell it in context. So this was the 1970s. And Spider-Man only recently, maybe a couple of months, maybe a year at the most, they started publishing Spider-Man as a 4-panel comic strip in the New York Daily News. And I think there were a couple of different artists, but right at this time, it was John Romita Sr. who was doing the strip.
Yeah.
And I remember every morning, I was still living at home, hadn't moved out yet. And I used to go out on the porch and get the Daily News. I'd bring it in. Who cares who was killing people in the world? I used to just page through it really fast, find the comic. I used to cut it out, which would make everyone furious because this is how you got news in those days, right? And they have this empty spot in the page and Carl got to Spider-Man, you know. So I used to cut it out and I was saving them. And then one morning I went out on the porch and I got the paper and I'm paging through it and I went all the way through it and you get all the way to the end, which is where the sports were. And I'm like, I must have missed it. So I paged it through again and it wasn't there. The comic pages were there, but there was no Spider-Man. And I thought, did they kill it? Is it over? I was like, I can't believe this. So I quickly pull out my Manhattan Yellow Pages. I look up Marvel Comics. I get their phone number. I call them up, and a woman answers the phone and says, Marvel Comics. And I said, you know, I'm a fan of the Spider-Man in the Daily News, and I'm really upset. Hold on. Let me get Johnny for you. So I'm like, what happened now? And you hear like, Johnny, it's for you. It makes it think like I called someone's living room. It was just this really weird thing. And I'm thinking, is John Romita really going to get on the phone and talk to me? Sure enough, it's like, what's the matter, kid? You didn't get your Spider-Man this morning? Like he was ready for this, right? Imagine how many calls I got. And I said, no, I'm really upset. I've been collecting because, listen, the Daily News, they send me these proofs. It's like every 3 panels, and you can see it right behind me here. And I said, I'll autograph it to you. What's your name? I spelled it for him. And he wrote, you know, to a great fan. wrote it out to me, says, I'm going to mail it to you. Give me your address. And as I hang up the phone, there's that like weird feeling like I met my first celebrity and
Mhm.
like he seems to like me. You know, that thing we convince in ourselves, like he's my friend now. And I'm thinking a day goes by, he's not sending it. This is not coming in the mail. This is not a day. It was like only 2 days and it showed up. And I opened it up and I saw the page there to a great Spider-Man fan, John Romita. And I was like, I can't believe this. I was just blew me away. So I held on to it for years and years and years. And just this past August, I'm doing a show out in the Mohegan Sun. It's the amazing Terrificon. If you've never been there, you have to go. It's just a great time.
It is a good
Mitch
show.
puts on one amazing show. He has great guests, and John Romita Jr. is there. And like a fanboy, I get on the line and, and I wait my turn till I get in front of him, and I paid whatever it was to get his autograph, and I hand it to him, and he's staring at it, and I said, I got a quick story for you. And I gave him the short version of what I just gave you. And I said, he never asked for anything in return. He did this for me and mailed it to me. And I've been so grateful. I want your name next to his. And John Romita Jr. goes, yeah, they did things like that back then. So he signed it. I thanked him, and it made its way to the wall.
That's a great story,
Thank
and
you.
I love it because I'll be honest, we didn't get the daily news, so we didn't have Spider-Man. But when I went to visit my family in Brooklyn,
Okay.
my uncle got the daily news, and that's where I'd read the Spider-Man strip. But I actually have the two book collection that they put out. Hold on, I
Wow.
think it's right here.
That has the entire strip in it?
It's not. I don't think it's not the entire run. I forget when it goes to, but it's the and volume 2.
Ah,
So you got them here, and so you'll see like the Sunday on one
yeah.
page, and then they have the 3 here. You go to the next page, and then you get the other 6, 3 for the
Three, three. Yeah.
dailies, and
Yeah.
then the Sunday again.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, I love newspaper strips, always have, and if it was up to me, I would love to see bigger newspaper comic sections. They're almost non-existent these days. And
Well, they're online now.
yeah, no, I know. I go on comics.com and all the websites that have them, and I read Webtoon. I read everything there. I actually really enjoy the whole webcomic format.
Wow. Yeah. This is going to sound like really crazy, but I'm not much of a comic book reader anymore. I
Mhm.
probably shouldn't admit to something like that, but I'm more of a novel reader. I like fiction. In fact, I'm already at a point where I'm rereading stuff. I'm rereading The Vampire Lestat, and it's amazing. I'm rereading To Kill a Mockingbird, and it's outstanding. And those are two examples. The reason I bring those up is you could make a feature film again, and it would be totally different than the original when they did it back then. And it
Yeah.
would be so much better because the features that were done back then, I mean, To Kill a Mockingbird was what, an hour and a half? And Lestat may have been, I don't even think they did Lestat. I think they did Interview with a Vampire, and then they bashed the last 2 books together, The Vampire
Okay.
Lestat and The Queen of the Damned, which is a shame because there's so much material in there that needs to be on the screen and could easily be adapted, especially with the new television format, which is streaming.
Yeah.
You have a show, it's 8 episodes, each episode is an hour or so. Yeah, now you can do justice to a book like The Vampire Lestat or To Kill a Mockingbird, or I recently read Stephen King's, 11/22/63, which
Okay.
was, wow, just mind blowing. It's so good. And I know they did a TV series about that. I tried to watch it. It just doesn't do it. It was such a great book. And I don't read a lot of horror, but there are some Stephen King books you gotta read.
I've never read Stephen King. My wife has. I
Yeah.
am um my thing is I'm actually kind of the opposite
Okay.
of you. I because I spend so much time in fantasy worlds, whether I'm reading a comic or drawing it or something, I can't read fiction. I need to read like biographies.
Oh,
The
wow.
closest I get to fiction is like reading mythology or
Okay.
something like that is because I just enjoy, I've always been a fan of myths and legends and like folk tales and stuff, but that's the closest I can get to. But I have so many fiction books here because I want to read them that I've bought the books that I know I want to read. And
Hmm.
it's like it's kind of like a bucket list goal for me. It's like sit down, start reading, but I'll read a chapter, two chapters, and I'm like, I can't do this. I need to I can't get into this world because I have it already visually in my head from a movie, a comic, or something. Like we're talking about MTV earlier, and I know we got to get to your comics, but there's just a little sidetrack here. Um, I never watched MTV. My brother was a huge MTV fan. I watched the cartoons and stuff that they put on, but I never watched music videos. To me, I've always enjoyed the idea of imagining what the song means to me or looks like in my head rather than having someone telling me what I'm supposed to see. And so I'm always big on imagination. So I think I need to find a fiction book that I haven't seen in film, animation, or in comic form to really sit down to enjoy it.
Wow.
Because
Okay.
I'm seeing all these other concepts in my head than what I want to see, I think, you know?
I always, I felt the same way about videos in general. I
Mhm.
think, if anything, I was probably older. I was probably 10 to 15 years older than their peak age or target audience.
Mhm.
And I had already gone through film school, uh, kicked around in the career, uh, taught with the Board of Education for a short while. I managed a video store. I was trying to find where I fit in. I was never a big fan of music videos for the exact same reason. I'd sit there and going, I see nothing but missed opportunity
Mhm.
on what it could be about. And what it was ultimately about, I was wrong on this matter, was it was ultimately about seeing your favorite singer on camera. That's all music videos were about,
Mhm.
because there was no other way to see them unless you could see them live at a show, which the vast majority of the United States you couldn't get to see.
Yeah.
You'd have to spend that kind of money. We at between those ages of, I don't know, 17 or so, when I first started going to concerts, to about my mid 20s or late 20s, um, we tried to get to see at least one or two concerts a year, and it was the only way. I mean, and that was unique. Most of the people I went to school with or hung out with was like, yeah, who could afford to go to a concert? All
Yeah.
right, dude, save up your money. What are you spending it on? Well, I got to get my weed. Okay, then that's your thing, and that's
Yeah.
fine. But you know what? That's fleeting. I could tell you about watching Ian Anderson sing with Jethro Tull at Shea Stadium, and that I was 17, and that was amazing. He packed Shea Stadium like the way the Beatles did only 10 years before, and it was an outstanding show. And it was the early stages of video, so they had like this weird video screen behind him, so it projected a very large image of him, and it looked like crap, of course, but to us in those days it was like, wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, these are experiences I remember for the rest of my life. How many people are going to go, yeah, I remember the 100th time I smoked weed. Yeah, nobody remembers that shit. I can remember every music, every concert I went to, and I can tell you something unique about it. Some kids be like, I just discovered Queen. All right. I saw them live in Madison Square Garden, and I was pretty close to the stage, and it was outstanding. So, it's not like it's a different type of experience, and I chose one over the other. I'm not saying it was better than what they did or what anyone else does. It's what I did. Uh, it's what fed my creativity. And I felt
Yeah.
the same way about music videos. See how I brought it right back to that. I used to watch a music video and go, ah, eh, eh.
Yeah.
Except the ones I worked on.
Yeah. No, I get it. It's the same, it was very much the same with me. I just couldn't do, and I'm that way a lot. When I was a kid, my father used to get me those old like radio shows from when he was young.
Oh,
My dad was
wow.
born
Yeah.
in 41, so you know, he used to listen to the Lone Ranger and stuff on things, and on the radio, and he got me some of, and I loved those so much, even though I knew who the Lone Ranger was and I knew the Shadow and I knew, but I just loved. I would go to bed listening to those things
Oh, wow.
because it just was really, it really just sparked my imagination.
Sure.
So when and I was like 8, 9 years old, and MTV I guess was around by then, but it was it was like, no, I want what I hear. I love playing make believe in my head, than
Yeah.
I more than I love, and that's the same thing like with paper. Like I had toys, but my favorite toy was a pencil and paper because I used to make my own little, cut out my own little figures, build my own little sets, and
Yeah.
I'd play with things like that. So I just preferred something I could use my imagination for. So I just
I
want
used to make
to go
these
ahead.
little costumes for my GI Joe. Back in those days, it wasn't like little GI Joes. They were like
Yeah.
12 inches tall. And using cardboard and yellow masking tape, I would make like an Iron Man outfit that you could actually, like the very first Iron Man, except he wasn't gray. They actually, he was painted gold. So I
Mhm.
used to make this, and the helmet could go on and off. These were the things I did. And
Yeah.
that was way more exciting than, you know, even watching TV is sitting there and making things.
Yeah.
A stapler, scotch tape. I was constantly making things.
Exactly. Exactly. I just want to say, when you were talking about the concert that you saw,
Yes.
um, Andrew Franco Rodriguez says, "Wow," and David who is Sillyville says, "You chose wisely." Uh,
Ah,
so,
thank you, sir.
we're almost at the hour mark, so I want to get into your
Oh,
comic.
sure.
I don't want to keep you super long tonight. Uh, so, but you have well, what? Instead of me talking, you tell us about the comic that you have right now.
There it is. Spontanea. Um, yeah, so let's see. It was probably right around the very beginning of COVID. Um, I mean, if I could go back really back in time, comic books before anything else is what sparked my imagination. We didn't have a lot of things in those days. We watched whatever cartoons were on. We had comic books, and then you played stickball in the street with your friends. I mean, there weren't a lot of like visually creative stuff. Comic books is something I've always loved, always wanted to do. When I started going to film school, my original intention was I wanted to be a comic book illustrator, and I could draw. I still can draw. I prefer not to. I prefer looking at the stuff like that you draw, and Richard Maurizio, and all the other great artists. You just sit there and you knock these characters together. I love it. So I decided I wanted to create a comic book character, and then just one night in a flash, I had a rough idea on what this character was like, what their unique ability was. I don't want to say superpower because I don't like that whole thing. But they had a unique talent or a couple of unique talents, and I put several of them together, and I created this character called Spontanea. Now, originally, a little bit of legal history for some of the people that are watching. um, the characters, the street level superhero Spontanea, I originally had a different name, and it reflected an early version of what I wanted that character to be like. And then as it began to grow and manifest, I eventually got in touch with an IP lawyer because I felt that I really needed to trademark it. And it was going to be an expensive endeavor, and it was, but I think it was a wise decision on my part. And one of the first things that my lawyer said was, you can't use that name, come up with a different one. So I had a couple of different names. And what I soon found out was that between Marvel and DC, they have trademarked probably every cool word in the English language. And you could just look this up for yourself. You go to Google, you know, jackpot, and there's a jackpot. I don't know who has it. Whatever. I went down this list and I said, this is insane. I was naming chemicals, gods, goddesses. I was coming up with all sorts of things. And I was getting to that point where I needed to trademark it. So my lawyer said, make something up. So I thought, she's a character that appears when she's needed most, spontaneous, Spontanea. And I hated the name. I didn't want to do it. I bounced it off of a close friend who was also into comics, and he said, that's the coolest name he's ever heard. It's a real, not golden age, a real Bronze Age kind of comic superhero name. And I was like, all right, if you like it, I guess I'll go with it, you know? and I did, and I trademarked it because I don't want Marvel or DC or anyone else to steal it from me. I don't want to get that letter one day. It's like, hey, we already trademarked this. You can't use it. And then I got to change everything. I'm not going down that road. I own Spontanea. So, so just to go back a little bit. So when I came up with this idea that I wanted to do, I wanted to also, I wanted to be different than most comics today. So I went to about 5 or 6 comic stores and I started buying whatever the latest issues were: Spider-Man, Batman, Superman, a bunch of DC, a bunch of Marvel, a bunch of independents. I stacked up maybe 30 or 40 issues that I bought, and I started reading them. And I got to tell you, it was just not much going on. There would be a book where it was like, hey, this is like, okay. And then there were books where it was like 10 words on a page. And then it was, books where it was really all about the vicious murder and blood all over the place. And I thought, well, this is not what I'm trying to do. So I reread some of the early issues of Spider-Man, the ones that Steve Ditko illustrated, that Stan Lee says he wrote. And they're just so beautifully written. And again, I started, I did a lot of writing. So I started to count words on a page. And your average Steve Ditko page had about 300 words on it. It was like, wow, there was characterizations, there were storylines, and you could even tell the lines that Stan Lee added because they didn't make sense. They didn't add into the story. They would have like, now Spider-Man says he's got to, climb down this wall because he couldn't jump or something. It was just weird stuff. And I'm like, Steve Ditko would never write that. He knows what Spider-Man could do. He invented Spider-Man. So I found a lot of this stuff very interesting. And then I wanted to write a book that had a reasonable amount of words on a page so that I could explore dialogue between characters and that the dialogue defines the character and there's multiple story arcs and that I could say a lot of what's going on. And that's how Spontanea came about. And as of last year, I completed the first 6 issues, which are floppies. And they're now being distributed by, you ready for this? PhilboDistribution.com. That's one word, PHILBO distribution.com. And they are going to be in stores, some stores, hopefully all stores soon, come January. We just loaded up our 4th issue. So we've got 2 more issues after it. And then after that, there's going to be the trade paperback. It's all 6 issues. It's volume 1. And behind the camera, we are completing the next 6 issues. We're finishing the 12th issue. So Spontaneity is going to have some legs. It's going to be around for a while. Every show I do, I have my out of print, limited amount of issues that I autograph. And I'm glad you asked me. My next show will be Lehigh Valley Comic Con in Allentown, Pennsylvania. I'm going to be there this coming weekend. So if there's anybody watching and they're out that way, please come by and say hi. You might even get something free because I always give things away at the table on a regular basis. It makes people, it puts a smile on their face, and that's my goal.
That's nice. That's
How'd
nice.
that work?
I mean, it's a good, and I just want to give a shout out to Phil Russett, who is behind Filbo publishing. I mean, Filbo distribution, also Filbo publishing. And I'm actually currently working on some sketch cards for his company right now. So I'm having fun with them. If you're watching, Phil, and I want to just say, who's Andrew has been saying, he goes, I read the bio, Steve Ditko was bullied. And yeah, I believe he was by the industry there, especially at Marvel. And Phil has been amazing. Yes, Phil is a great guy. Hold on, just seeing if I missed any comments. Nothing right now. So, but yeah, no. First of all, I flipped through the book. I need to get a copy and buy it from you next time I see you. I'd love to actually sit down and read it.
It would be my pleasure to give you a copy. You don't have to pay for it.
Oh, I would love that even more. But
of course, if you want me to autograph it,
yeah, I know, $30 and
never for my friends, never.
No, but I it looks great. I'd love to sit down and read it and find it, because I actually read comics every day. I pull out comic books, I pull out mangas, I pull out whatever. I trade and I'll read. If it's a floppy, I'll read that the whole way through. If it's a trade, maybe I'll read a chapter or two and put a bookmark in and get to it next day or a couple of days later. But yeah, it'll take me about a week, I think, to the way I read to finish Spontanea. But yeah, no, it looks like a great story. It sounds really good. Is there anything well, outside of going to shows, can they get the book anywhere? Can they buy it online? Or
yes, absolutely. So you could go directly through me, and that would be, that would be Comic Book Kid Pub, pub.com. You could find me, Comic Book Kid Pub, standing for publishing. My website, and if you purchase it through the website, then the best news is I can autograph it to you. Or if you just want to read it, you can get it on Amazon. It is called Spontanea Volume 1. That's the paperback. I think my single issues, some of the individual issues are also available, but those are actually printed, print on demand through Amazon, so they're going to have a slightly different binding to them. And if there's anyone who orders for libraries, you can get it through Ingram Spark, because we're also signed up with them. Or you can ask your local comic book store to go to the filbodistribution.com catalog, and you could order it directly from there. And Phil, our good friend Phil, will get it out to them.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's a lot of places. Now, we're at an hour and 9 minutes. I want to know, do you have a few more minutes? I do.
A couple
more. Okay.
Are you kidding? You got me on a roll here. You can't shut me up.
Okay, so you have another project that you worked on.
Okay.
That I don't know if you could talk about. I know you you have a film called Halloween Prankster.
Yes.
And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about that and
Sure.
a little bit about what's going on with it.
Sure. So I co-produced with Mark Hamill a short film called The Halloween Prankster. And I also directed Mark through the voiceover session. He did 2 different characters in the animated film. And when I say animated, it's stop motion animation. It's very reminiscent of the Rankin Bass Puppetoons back, like, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and
Mhm.
Santa Claus is coming to town and stuff like that. So it's very reminiscent of that. It's all about Halloween. It's about a nasty little boy who learns his lesson the hard way. And so that's a short film that I produced with Mark. I worked with Mark a couple of times, and everything you see about him online is all true. What a nice guy. Very easy to work with, very creative, very talented. He's probably done more animated voices than I think anyone else alive or dead. He's done hundreds. It's outstanding.
Yeah.
We also mentioned an amazing illustrator. Richard Maurizio is and I are putting together a children's book, and it's based on the Halloween Prankster. It's the current title is The Tales of the Prankster. So again, there's that nasty little boy that needs to learn a lesson, and Richard is doing all the illustrations for it, and I am rewriting the storyline to fit into a children's story, and that's a project we're working on together right now. And I'm glad you brought it up.
Well, it sounds like a great project. Um, it sounds like a fun story. Yeah, and just so you guys know, if you go to his website, which I'm looking at right now, you can go to YouTube and watch the 2 trailers to the animated film. So
Yes, that's right. It's there. I forgot. When you start to become a one-man show, it's hard to remember all the things you're doing, and it's like, oh yeah, that's right. I do that too. Yeah. You try to remember it all.
Yeah, no, I mean, listen, you've done a lot. You got a great what's the word I'm looking for? A list of credits
Thank you.
on stuff, and I'm looking at your website right now. So this is for because I don't see the dates. Is this where you said you're going to be at
Oh,
Lehigh Valley Comic Con, Allentown. So and then
yes.
you're going to be at the Long Island Convention of Horror in Hop Hog.
Yes, that comes out last 2 days in February and March 1st.
Okay, all right.
And that's out in Hop Hog, Long Island. They're they're like 3 hours apart.
Yeah.
But that's a great show if you have any horror fans who are interested. Patrick Kennedy is an amazing host. He put together the show earlier this year. It was the last couple of days in February and first to 2 days in March. And it was the first time it had ever been done out here on Long Island. And it's really funny when you first go into a new show that anybody puts together, a new convention, you're kind of like, I don't know, this could go either way. He totally pulled it off. He had horror enthusiasts who are writers, novelists. Jim Chambers was there with his books that he's written. Jim is not just a novelist, but he's also a comic book writer. He worked on the Kolchak the Night Stalker series. James is awesome. And then they had everybody selling everything under the sun. And so they also had a number of panels that went on through the entire 3 days, which was a lot of fun. On the last day, I did something that turned out, I thought it was going to be, more of an adult thing, and it turned out to be a real fan favorite for families. I had an audience of mommies, daddies, and children. And what was I doing? I was doing a makeup special effects demonstration. Had a young model there, and I was painting a really gross cut on her face. And I thought this was going to be something too gross for the little ones, but they were in the front row and they were like, yeah, that was cool.
Oh yeah, no, kids love that stuff.
I plan on doing another makeup demonstration. That's another thing that I learned along the way. It wasn't just stop motion animation. It was learning to do prosthetics, learning to do miniatures models, specialty costumes, props. You did whatever you could to survive back in the day. And again, we had to teach ourselves.
Yeah.
There was no YouTube and there was no comic books, magazines that you could read about these things. So, but I'm going to do a couple of panels at the show, and that's a lot of fun.
That sounds great. Maybe I'll stop by. I've never been to a horror show. I'm not usually a horror fan, but I hear horror shows are very just an interesting show to attend. And I don't mean it's strange, and so it just the fan base is just so amazing
Oh yeah,
for horror. I just want to kind of go there to see that.
yeah.
And I mean, my wife's a horror fan. Maybe there'll be someone there
Oh,
for her.
well, for next year, I believe Patrick is bringing in some big name guests, who autograph, and it's usually 8x10s, and you get pictures
Yeah,
with them, which is kind of cool. I can't say who they are. He has to announce them, not me.
I
Uh,
understand.
but I'm looking forward to it. And I got to tell you, if either yourself or your wife have ever done shows where they have panels, and to me, those are the absolute best. Getting
Yeah,
on a panel with a bunch of other experts in the field and just kicking around ideas. I mean, that 50 minutes just flies by, and
yeah,
it's a lot of fun. So
yeah.
let me know if you're going to come by, and I look forward to hanging out. We'll have dinner afterward or something.
Absolutely. I'll let you know. Rich says the fans are the nicest people. That's
We
that.
just had this conversation. Richard and I were talking about this. We were talking about how, these people who write and illustrate the most bloody, disgusting stuff you've ever seen are the nicest people. They will share ideas with you, they'll talk to you. Like, it's the weirdest contrast. But I know that out in New Jersey, they do a number of different horror shows.
Yeah,
I don't want to plug any of them. I'm not going to any of them. If they invite me, I'd be happy to plug them. But I got to plug the Long Island Convention of Horror, because Patrick is an awesome guy and he's helped me out a lot. And I look forward to, putting on my best show when I go there and do panels. So yeah, that's absolutely true. Absolutely true. It's a lot
that's
of fun.
that's cool. Because of all the shows I've done, the nicest people I've met are Doctor Who fans. Um,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
Doctor Who conventions that I've done have like I did a thing where I was at the Long Island Who Con a couple of years ago.
See, I've never been to one.
Oh, it's great. It's great. And I got to meet a couple of older doctors and stuff. And but who was it? His name was it Sylvester McCoy I met? That dude, I just love him and other stuff. But what was I gonna say? I offered to sit there and draw. I do what I call, the cartoonatures where I
Yeah,
draw people
yeah,
and like cartoon them. And everything I cartooned was Doctor Who themed for these people. And I told them, I said, listen, I'm not selling anything. I'm working off a tip jar, you know, and I did it for free because I know the people who run the show.
yeah.
So I said, listen, I'll come in, I'll sit down. I People were bringing me up food. I didn't get a break. They were like, "Oh, you need to go to the bathroom? I'll watch your table for you." I mean,
Yeah.
listen, I did better than I did at some shows just in tips.
Yeah.
At that show. They
Wow,
are
what a
the
cool
nice,
idea. I like it.
yeah. And I just sat there and I drew for hours for free.
Yeah.
And it was such a nice time. People were so kind, and I was like, "This is just really, really amazing." And the only money I spent was on the autograph. But I got him from when he was in The Hobbit of Radagast into Brown.
Okay.
Uh, so that I'm big, Lord of the Rings guy, so I had to get that. But yeah, I mean that's really cool. So I'm actually gonna have to. Do you know the date of the show? Because it's not on your website.
Yeah, let me see. Give me a second. I've got February 27th and 28th and March 1st.
Okay, so not a leap year this year, and last weekend in February. I think I
Yeah.
could do that. I'll have
Oh,
to
very
put that
good.
on my calendar so I know to go down for a day. But
Well,
yeah,
you're not that far away. You could.
yeah, no. Listen, I used to live out in Long Island. I know some of the area.
Right, right.
Yeah, yeah. So, but yeah, I think that sounds great. Now we're gonna wrap up in a few, but before I say the final farewells here, um, is there anything you want to bring up that we didn't talk about? Anything you want to promote?
Let me see. No, I think we just about wrapped it up nicely. My next
Okay.
appearance, things coming up in the future. If for anyone who's maybe coming from New York City, I'm usually a guest at Brooklyn Comic Con, which is out in Brooklyn, of course. And that is probably one of the strangest conventions I ever do. It's like everything goes. It's Sebastian puts that show together. He's the promoter and the creator of it. And he promotes it as, what does he call it now? Unlike any Comic Con you've ever been to, something like that. And it truly is. The last show I did was, I think it's in June. And in fact, this is really a funny story. So I would imagine most of comic people would know who Keith Williams is. He's like a legendary comic book illustrator. I first met Keith in School of Visual Arts when we were both students. And I ran into him because I think I saw him drawing a comic book character, and I was like, what are you doing here? And he says, oh, there's someone here, there's a teacher that teaches comic book illustration. And I didn't even know this because I was in the film department. And I think he wasn't in fine arts. I'm guessing he was in cartooning, maybe something like that. And he introduced me to Will Eisner. And I was like, you mean the Will Eisner teaches here? You know, can imagine this dumb 18-year-old going, golly gee, really? And it was really kind of funny because Will was busy critiquing somebody's work, and he kind of like got his attention. It's like, I want to introduce you to my friend who really loves your work. This is Carl Paolino. And Will Eisner looked up at me like this, like, and then he just ignored me and went right back to what he was doing. And then we went outside, and Keith goes, I didn't think it was going to go like that. You know? So funny thing about Keith is I run into Keith all the time. Mm-hmm. Whatever show I'm doing, if he's there, he is always right across from me. And I sit there, wave to him and his wife, and they wave back. But like, it's the craziest thing. So this last June, Brooklyn Comic Con, he was right across from me again. And there weren't a lot of comics going on. They had some raw stuff. They had some graded books. And then they had some artists. And of course, you know, there's Keith's table surrounded by, you know, anyone who knows his work, and they all want original sketches and stuff. And it's just always amazing. He's just always busy. It's like he does more shows than I think there are shows. I don't know how he does this every weekend. This weekend's the Lehigh Valley Comic Con is my 21st show this year, which blows me away because I can't believe I did 21 shows, but I'm exhausted. I got to tell you, it's a lot. Next year, I'm not going to do as many. I'm going to be a little more select. So the Lehigh Valley show, Karen and Bob, they put on a great show. They're the promoters. I would highly recommend it. It's a real traditional comic book show. They do have the usual toys and stuff, but there's a lot of raw books. There's a lot of graded books, and they always have an artist alley, and they always bring in a number of illustrators, some writers. The last two times I was there, my friend Prentice Rollins was there, who's an awesome illustrator, worked on a lot of DC stuff back in the day, and he does a lot of he's doing original stories now. He lives in England, and he flies back over and visits family, and he goes to the show. He won't be there this weekend, but I saw him back in April, the last time I did the Lehigh Valley show. So it's just a little bit of shout out to my pals. Love them all. They're a lot of fun.
That's great. And I have heard good things about the show. I've never been to that one though. So it sounds like something I need to check out.
We're going to get you out of your house. And
I don't know. That rarely happens. The most I get out is for alternate side of the street parking to move my car.
I used to live in Astoria. That was my first apartment, by the way. I would live like right off of Steinway Street. No, I lived on Steinway Street, and it was 4 days out of the week I had to move my car, and that was insane.
Yeah,
it was just the craziest thing. And the really weird thing was, so I was working in Manhattan. I was working at a prop company, and we were renting props and building props for television, mostly television and print ad. And I used to forget where I left my car. And it got to a point where I'd be walking around in the rain at night trying to find my car
Oh, wow.
because it was like I couldn't remember what side of the street it was on. So eventually I drew this little map, I put it on my refrigerator, and I had a little car magnet. And as soon as I got back to the apartment, I used to put the little car magnet on the block where I left my car, because I was like, at those days, you're in your late 20s, like I can't afford a ticket.
Yeah.
So, well, God forbid they hook your car and take it away. That would have been a lot of money.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
those were the days.
Yeah, I still got them here. So, although I know where my car is all the time, I have very good parking where I'm at.
Well, you got
But,
your phone, right? It's like, where's my car?
yeah, yeah. Oh, I never thought of that. But yeah, it's but yeah, no, it's good parking. I just go out. Like even today is the free day, but I'm like I had to step outside. I'm like this way I don't have to go out tomorrow morning in the freezing cold, and
Yes.
I'll just move it now while I'm outside.
Oh God, I can't do that anymore. It's one of the reasons I moved to Long Island. It just became so much easier. I could park anywhere.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, and you got a lot of parking spaces out there too. It's not just like meter parking and wherever. You guys have parking lots everywhere.
Absolutely true. Yeah.
David says they made a whole. They based Ashton Kutcher's movie on him, meaning you.
Meaning me. Uh-oh,
Yeah,
which
dude,
movie?
where's my car?
Oh, it's a thing. You got to, you live in New York City. You got to take that seriously.
Yeah,
I lived in Queens for a while, and we'd park our car on any main avenue. You got to put the quarters in the meter, and you don't want to forget, because they got the meter people running around, and they could write you a ticket in seconds. It was just like, yeah, and they put on your windshield, and they're like, ah, it's like you got to be careful. Things like that could ruin your profit margin.
yeah. I mean, and you. Excuse me, but now they have all the apps for parking.
Yeah.
So you got to look where you are, and if you forget to feed the meter like I did at Yonkers Comic Con, I did the show and I got what was it? Was it $75 ticket or
Was
I
it
can't remember.
really?
It was 45 or 75. I don't remember, because I unloaded my stuff and I didn't see the sign to, for what the thing was, and I was like, maybe they should have the show on Sundays where it's free parking.
I never did the show before. This is the first time I did it, and we were right next to each other.
Yeah.
And it was really weird, because when I first got out there, your GPS it does crazy shit when you get really close to something. And I'm like, I can't find it. Where is this place? It was just one of the weirdest experiences. And then when I saw people marching down the block with comics in their hands, I found it,
Yeah.
But they were really nice about it, because we were special guests and we were going to be on stage doing panels. They found spots for us, and I was like, oh, that was great. I unloaded quickly and parked my car, and I was good for the day. What a nice bunch of people. Really
No,
nice.
it was a great event. I'd love to do it next year if I can. So I had a lot of fun, and the panel was great that you and I were on, and we had a lot of fun with that.
Yes.
So anyway, I think we should totally wrap up, because I know you and I could probably talk for a while, and
it could not. We'll have to meet somewhere and like hang out and just continue the
absolutely.
conversation.
I got nothing going on these days right now. Yes, I'll give that other announcement. I did it last week. I'm out of work still, guys. So the company closed down that I used to work for. So I take commissions.
Are you? I'm sorry, you're doing your pitch. Go ahead. I'll just.
No, go ahead. That's all. You need to. You want to learn to draw? Hire me. You want? I'm available for lots of stuff.
Are you near? Are you that far from? Where was it? What was that show? White Plains.
Yeah. No. Yeah. I'm. It's maybe a 20-minute drive at the most.
Yeah. What was that building we were actually?
That was at the Westchester. No, yeah, Westchester County Center.
Oh, okay. There's like a diner right there, and Richard and I hang out and we meet there, because he's coming down and I'm going up, and we'll have lunch there, and you should join us.
Absolutely. City Limits Diner. I know exactly the one.
Yes, yes,
Uh,
that's it.
yes, yes. And if you and Rich says he'll be dragging Mike to shows, and I appreciate it. I really do. Um, but if you want to drive an extra 10 minutes, I'll take you to a better diner. Um,
Ooh, uh-oh.
no, no, no. Listen, City Limits is fine. It's a really good diner. But my favorite diner in the area is called the El Dorado, uh,
Okay.
and it's the one I enjoy
Is
going
that
to.
like closer to Richard?
No, closer to me actually.
Closer to you? Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So it's further down. All right, we'll see.
Yeah,
Because
no,
Richard,
but it's right up the road. It's like it's about a 10-minute drive up the road from where
young.
City Limits is on. So you
Oh,
just keep going up the road about 5-10 minutes depending on
oh, I
light.
see. Yeah, we could.
Yeah,
I can find it.
yeah, yeah.
El Dorado, huh?
El Dorado 3 is actually the name
El
of it. There's
Dorado
a couple.
3, not to
Yeah.
be confused with 2 or 1. Got it.
Well, number one, I think's in Elmsford.
Oh,
So
so
it
it's
is they have multiple diners.
gotcha. No, I'm going to pick up some stuff from Richard, so I thought may as well meet for lunch and
Yeah, I'll come out. You know, you want to go to City Limits? I'm fine with that. I love it. I
yay!
love all that stuff. Well, it's food in general. I love.
They make a great turkey burger. I'll give them that.
No, no turkey, dude. Thanksgiving's over. I am so done with turkey.
No,
I
really?
listen,
Oh, I'm
listen.
a big turkey
I'll
fan. What
tell
can
the
I tell you?
story. I'll tell the story. My father-in-law got like the day before Thanksgiving got a free 22-pound turkey. He could not. He did not have room in his freezer. He could not. He didn't want to cook it. They're like, "Do you want it?" I said, "I don't have room in my freezer. I don't. I don't want to cook it right now." But we took it. It was defrosted. It had to be cooked. So like the next day, I cooked another turkey, and I have made turkey salad a couple of different ways. I've made a soup. I made egg rolls. I've done like 4 or 5 different things with this, and it's all I've been eating. And I am done with turkey. I don't want to see it again for a good year. Yeah,
You are the turkey king.
yeah. I'm done. I'm done with turkey right now.
Okay,
I'll always eat stuffing though. The side dishes are great, but I'm just done with turkey.
sounds good.
Yeah, yeah. All right, man. You know what? Let's wrap it up.
Wrap it up.
I want to
Okay.
thank you. I want to thank you for coming on. I thoroughly enjoyed chatting and
Oh, thank
actually
you.
learning a bit more about you and your background. You guys, please go to it's comicbookkidpub.com, correct?
Correct.
And you can get his books, check out all this stuff here. And you can find him on Instagram and Facebook from there too if you want to follow Carl and his work.
Yeah,
Uh,
I'm pretty easy to find. It's my name, Carl
yep,
Paolino.
yep. All right. So with that, again, thank you for coming on, guys. I'll be back next week. Actually, give me 1 second. I just want to make sure I'm saying the person's name right. Let me go on Instagram here and get their name.
He's
It
gonna say
is,
it wrong.
yeah, I
Sorry.
always say everything wrong. It's Catherine Schuller. If you're unfamiliar with who she is, um, she was she has a lot going on with cosplay modeling. She was a model back in I believe the 80s and 90s. She was the wife of Mark Grunwald, who worked for Marvel Comics, and he's passed away. I think what 97, 98 he passed away in,
Is
but
that Catherine with a K or a C?
with a C.
Okay.
She was actually at Yonkers Comic Con. That's where I met her. You probably spoke to her too. Um,
I'm
and
trying to find her on Instagram.
she was such a really nice person. She does things with education for the elderly and stuff. And we're going to talk a lot about a lot of things. But she'll be on next week, and then the following week will be my holiday show, and we'll get all the great guests there. Uh, so I'll tell you about them next week. So with that, again, everyone who watched tonight, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for all that who made the comments. I'm sorry I couldn't get to every comment in there. I do appreciate you guys watching. But again, I'll be back next Wednesday, 9 p.m. Eastern, and please check out Carl's work and follow him on social media. And